in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellows scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Marble.
I'm Chad Bokelman.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 574.
Will not be one that people will remember, probably. Neither will we. We will move on. We will try to. This will be like a fever dream. We will try to forget that it ever happens.
We shall prevail. So tonight, guys, we're actually not going to like fully recap almost anything tonight. But today, in terms of comic book releases, there were kind of some notable, whether notable for the universe, whether or not it actually executed that way, we shall see. There were some notable releases that, from solicits at least, seemed like they were worth paying attention. And on this show, Mark and I were talking earlier today. We have covered, when DC went to the whole Rebirth initiative and the special that came out for that. And then we covered the Infinite Frontier special when they were kind of riding the ship again and telling us what was going to be happening in the next few years. Well, we've got our sort of riding the ship. Absolute Power has ended today, October 2nd. And the DC All-In special that's letting us know what's coming out of Absolute Power has also released. And then we also have a secondary thing and a special from DC, which is DC's I Know What You Did Last Crisis, which we'll talk about in a minute. Because I think we should split these up. Absolute Power and DC's I Know What You, and the All-In special. And then we talk about that, and then we can just briefly touch on the special if we want.
I think that does make sense.
So Absolute Power ended. The whole Amanda Waller thing. I'm not going to tell you guys like how they defeated her or whatever. They launch an attack on Amanda. There's more great Hal moments in here. Just Wally and Hal talking. I enjoyed that. That was very endearing. Talking about how it's, Hal found his ring and the Lantern Amazos out of place. So they're kind of talking a bit about everything that's going on. Hal gets sent on on another assignment because Steve Trevor has said that there was something of, quote, grave danger that is being built in the prison's basement. So that's Hal's next thing. So in terms of any specifics, that's what Hal's up to, this thing, which is basically there's this multiverse portal thing down there. I don't know how you interpreted what they were talking about in that comic, but this multiversal portal thing that Amanda has set up, because not only does she have all these Amazos and things on her side, she also has made allies across the multiverse, which I think we gleaned a little bit from what was happening with Power Ring or from what the hell was it? It was just the Crime Syndicate series, right? This has all been spinning out of that far back. Amanda started working with people of Earth 3 and stuff like that from around the Crime Syndicate series that you and I reviewed. So she's been making ties all this time across various dimensions. So she's got people like that on their side. So that's the portal that Hal is meant to take on. But the results of all of that is that by destroying this portal and defeating Amanda Waller and getting rid of these Amazos, somehow the way in which they shut down the portal or the device locks off our universe from the multiverse. So they didn't like destroy the multiverse, but the way to traverse the multiverse is not easy anymore, and it actually cannot be done because we have a couple of flashes having a conversation towards the end of the book where they're talking about, yeah, I've tried, I can't get into the multiverse. So nobody can get into the multiverse. This universe is cut off from the multiverse now. In getting their powers back, I guess it's also worth noting, and we don't know who, but a lot of people got their powers back, or some people got the wrong powers back, or the status of the powers when it was released is currently unknown. So that's setting up, I guess, future potential conflict. And Amanda Waller ends up imprisoned in was it Blackgate or Bell Rev? And Dreamer has locked her off from her memories because Amanda's like, I know all the secrets. I'll be out of here and whatever. I can blackmail anybody. And Amanda doesn't know anything anymore. She spent her entire life gathering intel, and now she has access to none of it because she can't access her memories about that. And then, we go into the All-In special, which is essentially, Justice League recruitment day. People are getting new Justice League badges that are infused with magic. And so it says, just because I think it's relevant here to a discussion we'll have later, it's got Steelworks, Wayne Tech, Queen Industries, and Terrific Tech built into the hardware, alien technology from Krypton and Thanagar, powered by the Speed Force, pulled together by John Stewart's architectural mind and Green Lantern willpower. Then Wonder Woman blessed it by the gods and infused it with magic and forces from beyond this earthly plane. So this is the new JLA membership card. So everybody's getting one and invited because this is our start to what will become the concept of Justice League Unlimited in the comics, because everybody is coming to the new Watchtower, the headquarters in space. I don't know if they're going to call it Watchtower, but every time we talk about a Justice League headquarters in space, what do we call that?
I think they say the Watchtower.
Do they?
I'm pretty sure they do. They say this is the new Justice League Watchtower.
Oh, okay.
But it's more. But it's more than that. And that's when they say it's a home and it's our home and everything.
So what's interesting too, this is another piece of it I'll read. So I mean, we got a massive room here. I'm not going to name every character, but we've got even Detective Chimp and Swamp Thing and Donna Troy's here. Dove is here. Ice. That's Ice. Dr. Light, so on and so forth. There's a lot of people here. So a ton of heroes. But they say these membership cards are so much more than they seem, more than just access to the Watchtower. Each card has been personalized to you and your powers to help and augment your abilities and pair you with others that can do the same. So it's high tech, but then Darkseid attacks because I'm not going to read all of this. I'm not going to even read some of this. Essentially, Darkseid has made a wishing machine again, and sorry, I got ahead of myself. In getting cut off from the multiverse, all of Darkseid's self, his energies that kind of leak out into the multiverse, because he is a prime creature. Apparently, there are no other Darkseids in the multiverse, but him and the energy that he embodies and what he represents, because there is a multiverse, kind of bleeds into the rest of it. He still is himself, but his force bleeds into the multiverse to be shared across the multiverse. But by being cut off from the multiverse, it is all consolidated into himself, and for whatever reason. And now he's got this drive to learn more and understand what's going on. So he builds a wishing machine because he wants to merge with the fucking Spectre to figure out what's going on. And then he dies in this fight with the Justice League, which is technically a fight to understand everything with the Spectre while he's with him. And I guess the absolute universe that we get out of it is another world created by a rift in space due to Darkseid's death, where Darkseid is bled through and is the architect of this world, essentially. Because Booster goes through and this rippens time, because only people who have temporal energies inside of them, aka a time traveler, can go through this rift. And when Booster goes through, he sees a glimpse of this world of Darkseids, including a future where the Legion is just the Legion of Superheroes are all minions of Darkseid. So there's a whole lot of dark side is and things like that. But that's kind of where we're going back to dark side, yay. But that's sort of where we are. We have set up the idea of what the Justice League is and how it is going to operate moving forward, and then who our big bad is going into future issues, and what this absolute universe supposedly is.
Yeah, thrills. They close off the multiverse just to give you an excuse how you can get it back into the multiverse in this one shot. Now let's deal with this in order a little bit. Now with the absolute power, besides having the multiverse cut off, the Flashes also were depowered.
So no, some of them. Barry was.
I thought they said all of them were.
I don't think so. I'll double check while we go through this stuff. But yeah, I don't think so.
I thought they were multiple Flashes were confirming that they felt not just that they tried to get back into the multiverse, that they were without, that they lost their power. But that's at the very end. I'm at that panel now. Let's see.
Yeah, first you were right, Barry. Whatever vibrational access we had to the multiverse is gone. Wally says, I've tried everything. Who knows when or if we'll find that door.
It took my powers with it, not just yours, Barry.
Yeah, but the next thing is, I hear you're not alone. So Wally isn't affected. He's just not the only person who lost their powers. Then we're not saying all Flashes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and Amanda Waller, the ending would have been much. I mean, it wouldn't have been great, but what they did with Amanda Waller would have been at least somewhat better if they hadn't already built in the basically get out of jail free card and kind of in the story, since they're making it clear when it comes to her memories, they're making it clear what hasn't happened, as opposed to making you think that, oh yeah, she'd been mind wiped or something. They're making it crystal clear that's not the case. So the get out of jail free card to fix this problem is still there, and it's blatantly there without who was ever coming along even having to do nearly as much heavy lifting. It's kind of like they cheated in a way. It's like we don't need to. Let's not worry about the next writer coming along having to be at least a little bit more creative to try to figure out, hey, we were told her memories were wiped out. It's like, no. We'll make it clear that her memories are still intact. So it makes it even easier just to wipe all this great to completely erase the ending and make it even less important than it is now. The whole spec. I'm glad they at least went back in this all-in-one thing, because basically you get one version of the story, then you kind of get a second verse, then you get Darkseid's version of the story that kind of leads up to the moments where they intersect, and then you basically have two versions of the same story in a way, and then they kind of end exactly the same way. But at least
did you know there's a flip book version of this, and not like flip where you but where you read the Justice League side and then you flip the comic book over and backwards. Yeah. I thought that was a cool thing to do.
But at least it's important from the perspective that at least we understand why, or how I should say, the Spectre merged with Darkseid. I still think it's a lame premise to say, okay, I'm going to merge with the Spectre and attack the Justice League, so somehow the Justice League can kind of like figure out a way to separate the Spectre from me, which when in the process will kind of help me die, so I can come back and recreate this world like in my own image, where basically so he kind of creates a Darkseid core out of all the metahumans that, because they've all been basically grown up in the presence of evil and raised that way, as opposed to with hope and all this other stuff. And Wonder Woman's raised like in hell instead of a paradise, and blah, 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 blah. End of the day, yes, it's Darkseid. Don't give a shit. Been there, done that. It's kind of hard to even care about Darkseid. Not that I ever did, but when they were building this guy up in Infinite Frontier, that's special, where he was supposed to be almost like, this is the one true Darkseid return, kind of like if they gave Superman back his pre-crisis level of powers, just to literally cut his nuts off right in the build up to Dark Crisis, and then have him be a puppet of both Pariah or the what the hell's the darkness? Great Darkness?
Yeah.
Darkness. That it's like that makes it even worse. So yeah, I don't care about any of this. There were some cool moments in Absolute Power 4, I suppose. it was moderately clever that Ollie was a plant, but he was a legitimate plant because basically he was com- he was basically hypnotized or to completely believe that he was on board with Amanda Waller until the moment that basically the clock would hit midnight, and all of a sudden the actual Ollie would remember that he was basically, oh, I'm back now. It's like I'm no longer like I no longer have to believe I believe in Amanda Waller. Now I know, oh, it's the Manchurian candidate kind of twist on that. It was okay. I mean, it's stupid event. This one looks pretty much just as stupid anyway. And I don't know. They are really, I think they're kind of clueless right now. It doesn't seem like they know what the hell they're doing, and they just can't come up with anything that's company wide, anything that's interesting.
Yeah. So for the absolute power stuff, I mean, we literally have pages of Amanda Waller screaming at people in TV, baring her teeth. They draw, I'm pretty sure at some point, spittle flying from her mouth, her eyes wide as hell in a frantic, crazy fucking look. And yet they have the audacity, either as creators, they have the audacity to do this, or the idea is Amanda Waller is fooling herself utterly by saying this, and that's intentional here. She says, all I ever wanted was to bring justice to an unjust world. All I ever wanted was to end the chaos. So like that's what she's like saying her entire goal is behind this. But if you've read any of this event, she has crossed the line so many fucking times that this is exactly what I was talking about last time, where I'm just mad that they made Waller a villain. She towed the gray line so well and gave us, regardless of whether you actually like the Suicide Squad or not, Amanda Waller and her motives were never such that you just like, like if the Joker had a motive, it's so obvious every single time, cut and dry, that he is just doing the most insane thing, the most evil thing possible. But with Amanda, you always had like moments to give pause and like, oh man, I kind of get what she's saying and like all of this stuff. But they have ripped that away from her. I'm not saying they ruined Amanda Waller as if I would say something like they ruined fucking Superman. But it's still like you kind of ruined this character for me a little bit. I don't know how anybody else feels, but that's how I feel about it, at least in terms of absolute power. Specific though to the dark side stuff, I do want to say and I want to read this only because we will be getting an absolute Green Lantern title, so it is helpful to know at least what if you guys are out there and not going to get it. Or get this special, at least our first description of what this absolute world is. So Darkseid is talking and he says, if that world, meaning our world of the DC universe, is driven by life, by hope, then this one would be driven by challenge, by turmoil. A world where heroes are born facing greater odds. Instead of being raised in paradise, they are raised in hell, where all their advantages are gone, where they are the small chaos rather than the system itself. A world where hope is the underdog, where it is the villain, the opposing force, and where it will have to burn brighter than ever before to survive at all. So whether that means anything or not in the absolute power, sorry, not the absolute, the absolute Green Lantern title that we're going to be getting. This is the context in which this world is built. So it sounds like a not doomed version of the Metalverse, because wasn't the Metalverse just intended to be like where every story is destined to end horribly, where there is no winning, basically? This sounds like similar, but like the story isn't predestined to end in the worst possible scenario. It's just designed to be harder.
It would be odd if that's exactly what Darkseid wants. It does sound like that, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. I do also like the Darkseid's trip through hell, heaven, the dark side of the moon to face down Eclipso, and then facing down the Quintessence. So like, do we care about Darkseid? You much less than I do, but I still don't care too much about him. But I did think it was interesting his access to all these planes of existence.
Just to see how impotent the Quintessence is.
As always.
Again,
Oh.
yes. It's like, well, I guess when you have a guardian, it's almost like it's like an axiom, a bylaw. It's like you have to, any group of them, and it ultimately has to be impotent because they just oh, don't do that, or we can stop you before. Yeah, you mean you're like an infinite frontier when I killed you all in 2 seconds, including the Spectre? Not that we ever got a real explanation for how those characters all came back either.
Yeah. I will say my absolute favorite thing about the All-In Special, though, is the Justice League Unlimited concept. And what I was reading earlier about the cards, each card has been personalized to you and your powers to help and augment your abilities and pair you with others that can do the same. I love that because it's in the name, Justice League Unlimited. They took the concept from the cartoon about how the Justice League operated and brought it into the comics, because I love the idea of every hero being a part of the Justice League who they can trust, regardless of the specificity or the level of their power, just as long as they were, trusted and doing well and whatever. They were in the Justice League, and you never know what situation is going to be facing people on Earth. So pairing the right people to the right situation, because everybody is on the clock. I love that idea about the Justice League Unlimited, not only because it gave you like really nice vignette episodes about, what is it? It was like Steel, not Steel. What's Stripe from Stargirl. Stripe being teamed up with Shining Knight, like there was always these weird combinations that somehow ended up working for the situation. So I do like the idea that the Justice League is going to be operating in this way, where we could get some really interesting team up types things, based on assignment. And it seems like we have Guy, we have Hal, we have John. I see Jessica and Joe as well on that splash page going in. So at least all 5 of those Lanterns. We obviously don't see Kyle or Simon here, are part of the league, but I would assume Kyle and Simon are part of it too.
At least Kyle. Simon can be handling the baggage.
I do. Yeah, I love because the minute I knew about, I was getting excited about the Justice League Unlimited concept, and they were talking about, I felt it coming, because they were talking about, we're going to have the biggest roster ever. We need the biggest base ever. Boom tube tech to get our teams to missions as fast as possible, which reminds me of the boom tube tech. And you ever watch Young Justice?
Very little.
Yeah, like when somebody was coming into the base, it would say recognized Justice League, and they would read out a number for their member identity. So that reminds me of that. A place where the best minds can come together to help each other, powered by magic and science. Oracle set up our computers and communications, and you might have seen our head of security, the Question, walking the halls. So I'm all in for this Justice League Unlimited comic that's coming up. We're gonna have Star Sapphire in. It makes me, based on this pitch, it makes me wonder if the first team of Justice League Unlimited, like the team we see in the solicit with Star Sapphire and Captain Atom, and then the Atom, and then a few others, like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. If we're going to even stay focused on that team very long, because if we're going to have different leaguers for different missions, and they refer to what we get here as Justice League Unlimited, then is the Justice League Unlimited comic going to change rosters basically every 4 issues?
You're asking too deep a question for me to delve into, Chad.
Okay. All right. I assume you're done talking about this.
Yeah, I already said about more than I probably expected to.
Then we got a solicit for DC's I Know What You Did Last Crisis, which is basically telling us that there were going to be a bunch of little vignette storylines that would be hopping across the various Crisis events. We'd get kind of what was Batgirl doing in this particular moment in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then what was happening over here during Zero Hour, and so on and so forth. Well, one of the solicits mentioned, what's happening with Scarecrow during Blackest Night. but this one was a bit of a letdown. I'm going to be honest. There's a couple out for a date in Gotham, and Scarecrow attacks and uses his fear gas, and he's testing things, and the way in which they overcome the situation makes him want to adjust his formula. And at the end of the story, a Sinestro Corps ring finds Scarecrow and says, "You are capable of instilling great fear." So literally the story that we got about Scarecrow during Blackest Night wasn't actually during, well, I mean, I guess technically speaking, Blackest Night had begun a little before he got recruited to be in the Sinestro Corps. But all we basically get, we don't see Black Lanterns, we don't see any other lanterns, we don't see any other heroes. We literally, in the story with the panel where Jonathan Crane is being recruited into the Sinestro Corps. There's a couple of other things I particularly did actually like. The Batgirl story for Crisis. That one is, if you ever remember the moment from Crisis where Supergirl and Batgirl are having a conversation on the rooftop about if the world's ending, then what's the point of any of this, and like all of that stuff. And then Kara flies away. This is what happened after Kara flew away. What did Batgirl do? There's also a nice JSA story for during Zero Hour, but I think most of these, the Final Night one was kind of okay, with Silver Banshee and Black Canary going against each other. But that one was more zombie story and creepy than the Blackest Night story with Jonathan Crane. So I don't know. The solicits didn't deliver, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say for all of these. This is not exactly great storytelling across the board. I agree. In the Crisis special, the Batgirl story that begins it is the highlight. It is just on its own. It's an interesting story, just regardless. Maybe just because it also humanizes Killer Croc and things like that, and puts kind of things in perspective as a little bit in it. But I got to the end. I couldn't. I think once I got beyond the, I'm trying to remember which one I got. I think I skimmed through all of them, but then I got to a certain point when it's like, okay, I'm done, because none of the others were captivating. The most interesting thing about the JSA one was the absence of dialogue and so many of those panels and pages. It was just action, and there was no sound effects, no dialogue, no writing, just art.
Well, seeing Exton again was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I made it crystal clear just by looking at it right away that this has to be obviously the 0 Hour story. That was okay. None of these are. This is not DC at its finest at this point, or if this is what DC has as its finest, then that's what's so tragic, because it's like they really need to. It's not thrilling at all. It's not really.
Yeah, it's really disappointing, because sometimes these little anthologies can really, really surprise the hell out of you. I think, you and I would readily admit there's been a couple of times where either a Christmas or a Halloween special will be like, well, damn, like more than half of that was pretty freaking good. But this was, for you're opening up the door to tell untold stories from multiple different massive events across DC. And it's kind of indicative of the way this whole thing was approached, in that one of the ones you throw in there is Blackest Night, and it has nothing to do with Blackest Night until the final panel. Like, what was Jonathan Crane doing before he got a ring? Do we care? Isn't the point of us coming, having our attention grabbed by Scarecrow during Blackest Night is like, what was he maybe doing while he had the ring when we didn't see him on panel? Like, I don't know. Like, that's what I would assume. But the fact that you're like, oh, okay. So right before he gets the ring during Blackest Night, what is he up to? And he's not even up to anything particularly interesting, to be honest. Like, they tell it in a noir, black and white, creepy kind of way as best they can here, mix in a little monster horror, Frankenstein kind of looking stuff here and there, and just kind of play with genre a little bit. But like, beyond that, it's not really an interesting story. It's just Scarecrow doing what Scarecrow does.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wasted opportunity, but that like most of these stories.
Yeah. It's a nice little schedule though for the Monarch Theater. Did you take a look at that on that page?
I did, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember what they were playing.
Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, Psycho, Evil Dead 2, Dread Castle, Child's Play, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Halloween at they're just talking Halloween at the Monarch, Rear Window, Rope, The Birds.
Well, yeah, they did have the right docket plan concerning what was about to happen, I guess.
But yeah, that's it. That's where we stand with the DC universe. Win, lose, or draw. For me, yeah, the only exciting thing is the Justice League Unlimited concept. I hope that means we get more random cool spotlights on smaller DC characters.
That would be cool.
All right, what's next?
All right, so let's do a few little bookkeeping things. I didn't tell you this, but this was kind of cool. I kind of stumbled into this. I was actually able to, for a pretty decent price, certainly under three digits, I was able to on a buy it now, right? Not a buy it. It was a buy it now, but a make your best offer deal. Going back and forth a couple of times, I was able to get an Eradicator pop.
Nice. The
NFT,
digital...
the NFT pop. Yeah. Yes, I was able to obtain him for 70, I believe, plus the shipping and the tax. So
it's not bad. Yeah, I anticipate prices of pops dropping soon. Maybe not all of them, because I think there's still specific niches and franchises that are, more on the upswing now. So people wanting the old version of those might still be a collector's thing. With just pops in general, I think pops are going to go down in price pretty soon. I think the aftermarket's about to get hit, because I've kind of lost my enthusiasm a little bit in a way. But then again, they just announced 4 Carnageized pops, which I see this wall of Venomized type characters in front of me, and I have to add to the collection, don't I? But I've just seen general interest in Funko kind of dropping lately, so I wouldn't be surprised if some other grails you might have out there start getting cheaper too, if you have your eyes on those.
I thought it was interesting. So I just once in a while I'll do a random search for things like that. And it was just weird. I mean, even the buy it now price was much cheaper than the majority of these things, because normally you still see the Eradicator go for about 160 at least. And it's like, well, there's no way I can justify that under any circumstance. So, like I said, took a little bit, not very much. I made one offer, he countered, then I countered him, and I actually expected him to counter it back to go up to 75, but he accepted it at 70, which I thanked him for. So that hasn't arrived yet, but I think it's supposed to arrive by Friday, so that'll be cool. Along with that are what we talked about recently, that the McFarlane Green Lantern, which either has the Tomar Abin or what's the other one besides Monk or whatever? Arliss. What are the other two? The variant.
Freaking Green Man and
Monk. What his name is? Arliss. I always forget his name.
No, the Wolfman.
The Wolfman. Yeah, the Wolfman. Right. Yeah. Something. Chunk, Monk. Chumuk. That's it. Yeah. So that guy arrived in.
Which one?
I don't know, because I didn't let me finish. It arrived in my pile of loot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know which one I have. This is one of those things where I don't want the variants. I'll probably get it.
You want Tomar and Abin?
I would prefer Tomar and Abin. Yeah, I don't really care about the other two. But if I get the variant, I probably won't open it though. That's the one thing I'll hold on. I'll probably definitely hold on to it and not open it. I might open the Tomar and Abin one. All right, so that's that. Let's go on to what has Mark seen. Trying to catch up a little here. Let's do TV shows first. As we speak, and I know the 4th episode is available now, but I will probably watch it tonight. I have watched the first 3 episodes of Agatha Harkness, Agatha All Along. And this one's for you, Dan, because yes, I've fallen asleep on every one of these episodes. And it's mostly me, but I don't find it overly compelling. It's quality. It's a quality show, the way it looks, the way it's made. I have no interest still in it. I'm gonna watch it to the end, but yeah, I think the cast is good. I think some of the things I was a little concerned about based on the trailers, which didn't make it look, when it comes to certain characters, it's not as bad or over the top in the actual show. But all that being said, do I really care about the show? No, I don't care about any of the characters in the show. So let's see where it goes. Let's see where it ends. My plan is to watch it to the end. But this is also something, if I miss one or two episodes, I could just keep reading the summaries and the recaps and wait to the end. But so that's a so-so. I did watch the Netflix documentary, the Vince McMahon documentary, the Mr. McMahon 5-part Netflix documentary. I can understand why he wasn't happy about it, quote unquote, how he was portrayed, but it's not really that bad either from the perspective of there's not a lot of meat here that people who know the history of the WWE and WWF haven't already heard about. And that's essentially what this show really is. Yes, they have an angle about an approach, and they've reached a conclusion, whether it's confirmation bias, whether they reached the conclusion or they already had their conclusion before they started the episode or the filming and put stuff in the episodes to make it seem like their conclusion was legitimate or not, and ignored everything that didn't prove their point or not. We don't know, but they definitely have an angle on their take on it when you're comparing Vince McMahon as a person versus Mr. McMahon as a wrestling character. So there's no doubt about that. So I can understand on that level why maybe Vince McMahon wasn't as thrilled with, or wouldn't, even though I don't know what he would really expect. But there isn't a lot new under the sun here. It's interesting because the history of the WWF and WWE is interesting. So then that's more or less what this is, from like the 70s late 70s, early 80s. Late 70s, I think, when he bought his father out, leading to Hulkamania and everything else. Most of the major events and the news in this and the topics that they zero in on, people know about. So there's not a lot new here. It's entertaining. It is entertaining. So, but if you're going in looking for salacious stuff that you never heard about, or this is going to be like some in-depth reporting on things that you're not going to get that. Now, was there more stuff that they didn't include, since they supposedly had like over, which I mean, not blatantly, obviously they did. It's a rhetorical question, but I mean, if some of the stuff they left out, if they had gone a different way and included some of that, could there have been some stuff that would have made it more, quote unquote, intriguing or bombastic something? Yes, but that's not what we got for the most part. So, for the movies, I saw Never Let Go, which is the Halle Berry kind of like end of the world horror movie. This is a movie it has a decent amount to say. The question is, because I think it's speaking on multiple things besides trying to be a horror movie. It's supposed to be speaking, I think, on mental illness. I think it probably has something to say about that. Kind of like I saw the TV Glow was about transitioning, which of course I didn't know that when I saw the movie in the theater, and most people didn't, which made me feel better because I saw people who would understand, who actually have transitioned and said, "Oh yeah, it's like if you didn't go through that, you would never understand that was the subtext in that movie." The acting was very good in Never Let Go. I thought the movie went on a little too long, and I don't necessarily know if the ending is overly satisfying. But again, by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be, most of the theaters this thing is playing in, it's probably going to be cut dramatically in half anyway, or exponentially cut down. So if you get to watch it on cable, I would say that one's worth watching. And I was probably one of the 1,000 people in the entire country last week that went to go see Megalopolis, the Francis Ford Coppola movie. That is another movie that has a lot to say, and probably says it a little too much at times. There was some really cool. It was visually striking, and there's a lot of cool things in it. I can understand why it didn't do well. It was a very difficult movie to market, and I think that's part of the issue. They really didn't know. They really didn't know how to market it. I think at times they kind of beat you over the head with the same idea, and I think the movie does kind of go off the rails in the last like 20 minutes. I think the movie either could have been like 20 minutes shorter, or maybe probably ironically maybe like half an hour longer, and fleshed out more, and it probably still would have worked better either way than what we got. I really only went to see it because I knew Natalie Emanuel was she was the co-lead, surprisingly, which is good for her. because unlike some of the other actresses or actors, even that I root for, that are seemingly or permanently in the supporting category, like Jessica Henwick and kind of like Gugu Mbatha-Raw was in that position too, that she's probably never going to get to be a star, even though she had been good in a lot of things, because it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards because you're always in a supporting role or in a movie where maybe you are the lead. It's a small movie. It never does well. I thought it was cool that Natalie Emmanuel actually got, because other than Adam Driver, who was the other draw to this movie, she has the second biggest part in the movie. So, and she was good in it. I thought the acting was good in this movie. I thought it's just kind of it's a very difficult movie to kind of try to absorb in one sitting, and some of the comparisons, the analogy between Rome and New York, since New York in this movie is like New Rome is New Rome, so they're obvious, but it's still basically New York other than the name, and it's the not so subtle ties between the Roman Empire and our collapse and everything else on multiple levels. Yeah, I would definitely watch that on cable. I would definitely watch that on cable or streaming when it's available. I think it's worth checking out because it's unique and someone has had a vision, and I think those movies are usually worth seeing. And that's it. That's it for that, chat.
Yeah. I just finished the first 2 seasons of The Orville.
That show.
Yeah, I've been getting curious about it because I keep seeing clips of it on like TikTok and stuff, and they always made me curious. And then there was a sale for like the first 2 seasons in a bundle on Vudu for $10, and I was like, man, why not? I enjoyed it. Like I get that it's supposed to be an homage to or a ripoff of whatever you want to call it of Star Trek. But it's even shot like classic Star Trek. It feels like. Have you ever seen an episode?
I haven't seen an episode of Orville, no.
Gotcha. It's I believe it's even shot like classic Star Trek, which I get is, I guess, supposed to be a part of the homage, the bit that he's doing in terms of making the show, but it comes off cheap, despite it very clearly being done intentionally that way. It just comes off cheap or weirdly edited in a modern context. But other than that, I have fun with some of the characters, and some of the jokes are not up to snuff. Basically, like it's not like you're watching an episode of a Family Guy or Rick and Morty or not Rick and Morty's a different creator, American Dad or any of that stuff. It's it's not like all those jokes on those TV shows were like absolute knee slappers, but it is not Seth MacFarlane's peak comedy. There are definitely like great comedy moments in it, but still I think it does a good job about putting together an enjoyable cast with interesting interpersonal relationships and some development, such as a show that's shot like that, meant to homage that, done in such a format that it still manages to endear you to most of its cast, so that you care pretty evenly about more than just the human species. Obviously, there's a character called Bortus who's a Moclan, who I guess is meant to what's the race? Klingon. Basically meant to be their version of a Klingon, and all these different things. So there's different things to pay attention to. There's a guy who works down in engineering who's basically just a sentient blob of sludge with a mouth on it. So they have fun with some of the alien stuff, but yeah. And then you throw in the comedy aspect that's meant to be there, like. And this is not a spoiler because it's in the pilot, and I'm pretty sure they're in the promotions. Captain Ed Mercer, who becomes pilot, the captain of the Orville, his wife cheats on him with an alien who you find out later their species goes into heat, and it causes everybody around them to get absolutely randy, regardless of their prior inclinations. Whoever's around is going to get their attention, and that's how. This alien happens to be visiting them on the Orville right when they're in the middle of peace talks between 2 warring factions. So the solution to the problem of getting these two warring factions is to get along with each other is to basically expose them to the same room as this alien who causes everybody to be in heat. So these two leaders of these two warring factions fall in love.
Boy.
So like there's weird comedy like crap going on in there, but I thought it was actually pretty good enough to where I will get season 3. There's only 3 seasons of the Orville. It was canceled, I believe, or it was one of those shows that was like put on hiatus, but has been on hiatus so long it's probably actually never going to come back. We might as well call it canceled, kind of a thing. But yeah, I think I'll get the 3rd season and see how it all works out. But that's my what have I seen.
Nicely added, Chad.
What else we got?
Well, we have some feedback.
We got lots of feedback.
We have. It's a fine line how much we have. There's, using the term for the day, there's meat on the bone here. So
Yeah.
So speaking of which, we will do one of Monty's that goes back to July, which really isn't that long ago, but long enough. So all right, so let's do this. Yeah, let's try to do I think I'll do a couple of paragraphs and then we'll break this down. Hi, how's it going? First off, I don't read solicits or watch movie/game trailers. So when I said that about Nate, when he kind of talked about him becoming a villain, that I had no idea what was coming, though. A supervillain doesn't seem to cut it either. But wow, right? Those 2 pages have made me more interested in Green Lantern than I have been since Brightest Day. I've had some similar experiences, particularly in love and thankfully well in the past, as poor old Nate here. So I really feel for the guy. Any more cores on the way? After a guy in his Nort, I always liked the idea of a humor core. In a similar point, I found that Hal has always, I think he's been the sort of guy that I wouldn't like in real life. In fact, I do know people like him, and without something for them to focus their issues on, in Hal's case, it's his Green Lantern career, they can sometimes end up hurting those around them because of their self-focused nature. Let's face it, Hal doesn't do what he does for the sake of those he saves, like Clark. He does it because it makes him feel good about being good at something. Maybe I'm way off base here, but the way he has been written in this series to be a lot closer to this version. The plane sequence showed he can be a proper bastard in pursuit of what he considers to be his, but then almost completely disregards Carol once he gets his space ticket back. Another aspect of those types of guys is that people inexplicably respond favorably to them, despite everything and only up to a point in real life. Carol's actions when she gets the ring back reflect this almost perfectly, and I applaud Adams for injecting this uncomfortable realism, but he's kind of making Hal the villain in my eyes, and I'm not sure that's what I really want. All right. Again, this is similar to, even though this is more later in the run than when Dan said this, but I still think some people are giving Hal really giving him more of a raw deal than he deserves in some of this stuff. That I don't necessarily know if everything Hal does, just he does because, hey, I want to be good at something. Is there some ego involved in some of what Hal does? Yeah, but you can make a case there's ego involved in almost what everybody does. Even Batman. Superman, probably not, but Superman's the exception to the rule. Maybe Wonder Woman, probably not, but I don't know.
Is it still canon that Kryptonians have like the good gene, basically?
I don't know. I don't remember that ever being.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't at all. But
there was something in the comics for a little while, and even I think it was taken over to animation, that something about Kryptonians or Kal-El's bloodline being genetically wired to be not better, but gooder, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's possible. But then again, that would not necessarily. If it's related to his bloodline, then it could be more of just a family thing, not a species thing, if you will, or a race thing. I don't know. I think this kind of, in a way, and this view also completely disregards Carol, like we saw her in the issue when they were stupid and drove to Las Vegas when they were kids. She's at best an enabler in this. She enables Hal because she's always there and she allows him to do what she does, and she keeps coming back. So she's not in it. She's not, And it's not, and I'm not victim shaming here. It's the reality. It's the reality. Carol's too smart, especially as a little girl, to know she should have ever gotten in that car with Hal, because it's not like he's 18 or 17 and he has his license. And it's like, okay, I don't know where he got the car, but it's like she damn well knows she should never have done that. So she does it anyway. So as we've seen play out in like the last issue, it's like she acknowledges she does all these stupid ass things because she loves him, and that's the point. So, and does Hal take it and
they feed off each other.
yes, exactly. That's kind of where I was.
Yeah.
Where I was just about that. How I was just going to say, if would Hal do some of the things that he does if he didn't know that she either would react to it, or if she would react in a different way? Would he like straighten up a little and fly right a little bit more? Probably. But they do. Yeah, it's a yin and yang, but not in a positive way a lot of times. So I just think it's kind of and I understand in real life people like this are probably there's ton, we all kind of know some people like this. And yeah, in real life it's probably going to be a lot different. But of course with Hal we're privy to being able to see the good in Hal and see what balances it out. And like Carol kind of acknowledged, Hal doesn't just leave because he wants to leave her. He leaves because he's got something that Hal Jordan theoretically was really bad at, but he's not as bad as people think he's bad at. He's not as bad as people think he is at it, which is being responsible. He has bigger responsibilities than hanging around either doing stuff for himself, doing stuff related to work for Carol, which of course screws her, but he's got higher cosmic responsibilities. And that's what he has to, and that when push comes to shove, that's what he's got to go to. And she kind of gets that a little bit now. Now, does that mean that's going to be the permanent dynamic? Of course it won't be. But
I think too, you're talking about magnetism, Monty, basically that quality that people have that makes people flock to those types of guys, despite them being utter douchebags. Magnetism is a quality that people can have. It's just whether or not they have other qualities to balance it out or not. Hal has qualities that make him a redeemable type of guy, but it's just a simple fact of life. There are people who have the gift of magnetism without having much depth or interest or sense of well-being or benevolence to them either. So you have people with good magnetism and people with bad magnetism. I would argue somebody like any charismatic leader could be accused of having, a sense of magnetism. But are you a John F. Kennedy or are you an Adolf Hitler? Both still had people flock to them because of the magnetism factor, but they also had other factors which either made them good or bad. And I would argue that Hal just happens to be a good guy with magnetism, but the magnetism is off-putting to you in general because it's something you've come to recognize as being not a good sign based on your own personal experience. And I agree with you. I've seen a lot of those guys, and you're just like, I don't understand why these people are listening to this utter selfish douchebag. But he has magnetism and I don't. So you learn to hate that trait in others.
Yes, and the reality also is kind of like where you touched upon it, is that when you are oftentimes, not everybody, because sometimes you're a leader and you have the personality of a piece of chalk, but the reality is when you do have the it factor, people flock to you, and we're real good at labeling when it happens to somebody on a side we don't like, then it's always a cult. But it's never a cult when it's us. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like the same qualities that you can see as somebody's he or she is a cult-like figure. The same people will look at your leader and say, well, we think they're a cult. They have cult-like leader qualities too. So the magnetism usually is the driving force behind that. Back to his email. I also can't be bothered to follow Sinestro and a bunch of other comics. As Chad pointed out, there wasn't anything really to follow anyway. My main point, should Hal still be allowed to exist? It's like, whoa, right, but hear me out. In the Kyle years, there was this feeling that Hal's time had passed. He'd grown oldish, gray temples, had a breakdown due to his trauma, did some bad things, but ultimately redeemed himself. The story was told with the Spectre years being a kind of epilogue to the whole thing. Johns brought him back for a reason, to tell the stories he wanted to. I think maybe Hal should have been put back in the box after Johns was done with him, because we have some excellent Earth Green Lanterns. I love them all, to be honest, who really need fleshing out, but instead the focus is on Hal and John, who really don't need the attention. I'm seeing a similar point being explored over in Flash, where Barry is questioning his place and relevance in a world where he'll never be the fastest man alive again. It's a hardline solution, but I think the answer is that Hal and Barry need to return to their legendary status by sacrificing themselves once again and letting the whole thing move forward. Well,
No.
Yeah.
No, because if Alan and Jay aren't gone, then Hal and Barry will never be gone. It's the same reason why we have fucking 6 different not flashes. Well, yeah, I'm assuming flashes, but Robins, because all of them have to exist because all of them have fans. We are never. Hal may lose center stage. He may lose focus. He may even not appear in comics for a while. They could, yes, take him off the stage, but Hal's never going to be gone because Alan's never gone.
Worst case scenario, he would get shelved for a period of time. And like I said, I don't think everybody at DC would like to do this, but I would if I had to bet, I would bet the current editorial would love to push Hal off center stage and have John be the focal point and probably Joe be the second focal point. And then maybe if there's room for anybody else, probably Jessica or Kelly for that matter. But the fact is, Hal puts, from a comic book sense, Hal puts asses in the seats. And he's been doing it for like 20 years now, and nobody else has really proven that they can have a really decently selling Green Lantern book in a long time, other than Sinestro. But nobody has really proven that they're. If you take Hal out and stick Lantern A in his spot, then everything's going to keep flowing either the same way or flow better. Could it possibly? Yes, but there's no evidence that would happen at the moment. And if you took Hal off center stage, and if you took John off center stage, well, they probably would take Guy off too, because you got to you have to come up with a reason why. Okay, if you took those two off, why isn't Guy the focal point? But the reality is, if Guy, Hal, and John were off somewhere, and you were just focusing on what was left, I think you would see the sales really plummet. And this is even with the fact that does Kyle deserve a push? Because he hasn't had a push in a long time. Since the last New Guardians book, and I don't even know if you can call it a push, because we had so many Green Lantern titles, and every single of the Corpsmen had their own book, so of course he was going to have one. It would be cool. I don't think that's the solution. I think, and this is coming from somebody who back in the day would have been very happy if Hal as the Spectre made this huge crisis-like sacrifice at one point, saving the DC universe. And then Hal gets his redemption, goes to heaven, and that's it. Somebody who would have been more than happy with that as the destination for Hal Jordan. Yeah, I don't think he needs to make, and I don't think Barry, of all people, since he's already been down that road once. I mean, Hal technically was too with Final Night, but what Barry did was more important. I don't see that happening.
Clearly, Monty's reading Flash. I'm not right now, but we did just talk about a new development for Barry. We're already talking about him being less and less and less based on what Monty's saying, and we just got even further evidence they just took away his powers. So yes, it could be entirely possible that we're about ready to take Hal off center stage or Barry off center stage. But when people bring up the conversation, like, because when they take someone's favorite Lantern off of the focus, they start going, oh, they're going to kill him, or it doesn't, like, at the end of the day, they even could actually quote unquote kill the character. But even lately, have you noticed how like those deaths in comics used to last a while? Now it's like a year, 2 maybe, and then they're back. So it's almost equivalent to just taking them off center focus and telling a different story. Like, using Robins as an example, if you had an ongoing Robin series and the focus was Jason Todd for a while, and then they changed the focus to be Tim Drake, it doesn't really matter whether Jason Todd died and came back later on, or they just took the focus off of him, because you're still seeing Jason Todd the same amount as you would in either situation. Whether they remove the focus from him or kill him, you're not getting comics for the same amount of time that focus on him. So isn't it the same thing?
Yeah, it's just the quote unquote finality is
Yeah.
is clearly a little different when you kill. But yeah, it's not like the old days when you would kill characters off and then it would be sometimes you would have to wait like 3-4 years potentially depending on what book you're talking about before a character would come back, and which always kind of made it special when somebody came back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now there's no, yeah, so and so died. Yeah, I can be upset my favorite character is dead, but everybody comes back so fast. It
Yeah,
doesn't happen anymore.
or there's like a post-credit scene like in a movie, so you already know that he's not dead. Kind of like what they just did with Amanda Waller. Not that they killed her off, but they already gave you the out for for how they resolved the story. So it's like, okay, well, it's just someone's gonna crack the nut before you know it, and boom, we're gonna be back in the same boat again.
Someone's gonna open Pandora's box, and that's all.
Pandora's head. Speaking of John, I just read War Journal 11, and as with the previous issue, I appreciated the increase in pace and loved the new entity created of Shirley and the power, though I will say it's all very Ion-like. I still have basically no interest in the Olgren stuff, though. Preach, Monty, preach. I want to see John deal with something more Green Lantern-centric, like what happened to the Mosaic cities. Surely there are full civilizations like Zudar out there who remember the time some nutter nicked whole cities and towns and yoinked them into space. Very nicely written, Monty. Right. I'll leave you alone for now. I'm at episode 457 in the thick of the Thorn run, and I'm loving your coverage. Have a great month. 457. He's catching up fast.
I think he's pretty close to caught up already at this point. Yeah,
if you add in the other 2 mails we have from him, right? But I'm just saying, even at this point, from where we are now, he's like he's only like 100 and less than 120 episodes behind.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say about that, but I will circle back to his first point in the email about getting other Lantern spectrums, like he was talking about humor and stuff. Dan released his first of the Blackest Night videos over on Mosaic Comics. Have you seen that? Have you watched that?
No.
I know he told us that the project was coming, but it released yesterday, actually, the first. So I, got a chance to revisit Blackest Night with his first video, and he's put a lot of work to him. That first video is like 30 minutes or something. And he was showing me that telling us about the first up to the third issue of the main series. Basically, he was showing us the Green Lantern issues where Black Hand died and all this stuff. But we're caught up to the point of the third issue. And we see the page where Indigo 1 tells us what's going on, which is that big splash page you remember with all the splintered glimpses behind her. And she was talking about how for 700 years, the natural state was darkness. And for eternity, the natural state was darkness. Then then light entered the universe, and for 700 years, it was 700 years until the darkness fought back. And when the darkness fought back, it caused the light to splinter, which gives us our emotional spectrum. So in thinking about that, in all the history of the universe, it's like, how many more secrets can immortals have? Like, every time you introduce a core, aren't you in kind of introducing a new universal constant power that's always been around since the dawn of time, and we are only just now discovering? Like, isn't that essentially what you're setting up every time we introduce a new core? And how many secret lights could there possibly be in a scenario like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's after a while, some of the retcons about stuff and get count. Now again, we assume, which we know is always dangerous because we know what can happen, that we assume that we're going to get an explanation for how this Sorrow Core exists, besides potentially others, because of what's going on with that power battery thing, and why the emotional spectrum is all screwed up, and that's causing potentially splintering and things like that. But we don't know how it's going to be resolved and what what state the emotional spectrum is going to be in afterwards and everything. Would I mind if there was like another? See, because by doing it this way, they kind of have an out. They do potentially have an out, whether these cores stick around for long. because of the fact that they didn't really exist before, and it only exists because this is now being introduced into the emotional spectrum, or the emotional spectrum is being put into circumstances that it never had been before, and this is what's causing it to fracture even more. That at least you have a built-in reason potential. I mean, you have a built-in reason. We don't know what the reason is yet, but they have a built-in reason for why that could be happening. So at least it's smart, as opposed to saying, the classic. It's like, oh, you see, there was these 6 other cores we never knew about, and they were hidden from the Usher, they were hidden from the Guardians by that. So that's the stuff that drives people up the wall. But at least this is, well, something has changed, and that's the reason
true.
why. So,
Yeah.
but again, doesn't mean it's going to work. Doesn't mean we're going to like it. And
Could be just a temporary splinter.
yeah, it could be temporary. It's just like, hey, until that 0-hour anniversary special, we didn't know that there was a splinter universe where there was a Parallax Hal Jordan that still existed, and that a splinter of the Parallax entity still was broken off from the main entity, and things like that. That we've been basically dealing with a non-complete Parallax entity this entire time, ever since we found out that he existed. It was never the full entity. So, but see, at least that's like a classic. That's like a Jeff Con. That's like a classic Jeff Con. Everything we saw happen. It's just that there was stuff we didn't see that also happened. But at least what they're doing now with the spectrum is, it's like, well, depending on the explanation we get in the next few issues, that will make it so, well, this is what's going on with the emotional spectrum. So maybe this is why things are behaving in a different way.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Monty, for your emails, and we have some more to get to in future episodes. But for now, I think that's going to wrap us up.
I agree.
All right. If people want to reach out to us, what do they do?
LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, #GeoCast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a voicemail or a text, 708-LANTERN. I guess I just can't say lantern without my Peter Brady voice in my dry throat. I'm leaving it in. LanternCast vids. Email us at lanterncast@gmail.com for our Discord information. And yes, Lance, we're going to talk about those polls more.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.